Now, I feel I need to begin this video with some kind of disclaimer or waiver because I'm going to talk about the most disturbing book I've ever read. I wasn't even sure if I should use the term disturbing, or maybe I should have used distressing or brutal, because it is actually all those things, or at least it was for me. And I think now there are some things which everybody can find on some level brutal, disturbing, and pretty darn horrible. Of course, there are other things that might be subjective. However, I think the type of thing that I'm going to talk about in my most disturbing read is going to be disturbing and brutal, probably pretty much for everyone, unless you're really hardened by reading some rather revolting horror or something like that. So you've had your warning. Hello everybody, welcome to and welcome back to my channel Book Time with Elvis with me, Mark, and I hope so much that you're doing very well indeed on this, the third day, or perhaps fourth day when you're watching this, or it could even be the fifth day, who knows, but it doesn't matter. In these early days of 2024, I hope everything's working out for you as you expected. And as I said, I'm going to talk about my most disturbing read, or my most brutal and distressing read, whatever suitable adjective fits. I'm sure we could find many. You can leave the comments below what you think is a good adjective for that. Is a mystery, a horror mystery, a historical horror mystery, maybe. Is it horror though? I mean, what happens is horrible. I don't think it's horror, although it is described by some as such. But there's certainly no supernatural element to it. It is just horrific in terms of the murder that is committed and other things that happen. And the book in question is one I have mentioned on the channel before, but it's never had its own video. And I'll get to the reason why I'm deciding to talk about it now in a second, because, well, maybe in a few minutes, because there is a reason why. And the book I'm talking about is this one here. I don't know if you can see it without the glare, but it's The Wolf and the Watchman by Niklas Nat och Dag, otherwise known as Nicholas Night and Day, which is a good name, and it is his real name, apparently a very old aristocratic Swedish name, and it is originally a Swedish book. Of course, I read it in English translation. It was Niklas's Nat och Dag's debut novel, and it won a Swedish crime literary prize back in 2017. Now, I have quite a lot of mixed feelings about this book because it was good, but it was distressing, and it is a book I think I can never read again. It was recently picked by Very Literary Carrie, or recently over last year, 2023, as one of the Black Hearts Book Club picks. She heard about it from me, and I declined to reread it. Well, what's it about? Well, as I say, it is a historical crime novel. It's set in late 18th century Sweden, in Stockholm, 1793 actually. It's set amid a background of political turmoil following the assassination of the Swedish king. Sweden's also been ravaged economically with various wars, I think against Russia, if I remember rightly, as being one of them. And of course, like many places then and now, they were governed by a load of self-serving aristocrats and other forms of almost kind of proto-oligarchs, perhaps, that kind of thing, if you like, while everybody else lived in dire poverty. And it is grim in this book, the way the poverty is portrayed and how people are living. I mean, we're all too quick and easy to look at Scandinavia as some kind of bastion of social care, and there's probably a historical reason why they went down that route, is that actually Sweden was extremely poor and pretty grim in the years preceding the 20th century. So what happens in the book, amid this background? Well, there's been a murder. There's been a murder. It starts off with one of the main characters, two main characters, finding a body. The character that finds the body is a chap called Mikhail Kardell, who's an injured war veteran. He finds a body in the swamp near Stockholm, and to be honest, the state of the body is quite disturbing anyway, because, and I don't know if this is a spoiler because you find out pretty early on, but if you don't want to listen, you can stop now. But he basically finds a body that is a head and a torso, which is pretty grim stuff. But I suppose, you can look at it that maybe the murderer has just cut up the body in a way to dispose it. If I remember rightly, the eyes have been put out and it's missing also its tongue too. So pretty horrific. Kardell then hands the case, as it were, then over to an investigator known as Cecil Wing or Cecil Winger. And Winger himself is in a bad state because he's dying from tuberculosis. And they decide anyway to work together, and they become kind of enmeshed in this really grim and dark underworld of late 18th century Stockholm, involving thieves and prostitutes, former military people, mercenaries, and all sorts of types of criminal things going on. You also see some regular people who are living, as I say, pretty horrific lives in absolute dire poverty. And it's as the investigation goes on that the true nature of the crime that's been committed in this book is just so horrific. And again, if you don't want to hear anything more, stop listening. You've had your warning. So basically what happened to the without giving away like who did it and that kind of thing, but what actually happened to the body was that none of these things were done post-mortem. So the victim had their limbs removed, their eyes put out, their tongue cut out, all prior to death, and sometime prior to death as well, which just for me is so horrific. I'm always somebody who's absolutely terrified of that kind of having the whole senses and things removed. It's like when you hear about people in is it locked-in syndrome? Sorry for the noise. Elvis is scratching in the corner over there. What are you doing? I'm trying to be serious. Like this locked-in syndrome is absolutely... It's nice to see that I get listened to, isn't it? The authority I wield in our house. Is this locked-in syndrome just terrifies me. And the thought that somebody has gone through this and they are alive and alone in their minds, completely blinded, can't communicate with anybody, and are kept for the most horrific reasons you could possibly imagine as well, which I won't go into. And then in order so they don't lose completely their identity, the victim prior to death embarks on just a horrific and disgusting ritual. It is, for me, I thought, what are the worst things I can conjure up in my mind? And this book, I think, exceeded my own imagination in terms of how sick I can be personally of stuff that I think of. Now, the problem is that I thought it was a good book, and I would recommend it, but only with that caveat that you could be disturbed, disgusted by what you read. In fact, you probably will be. Maybe not everybody will be disturbed, but you'll very likely be disgusted. It's a good mystery. It's a good story. And this is what brings me to the reason why I made the video today, is it's actually the first in a series. So this book, as I said, is called The Wolf and the Watchman, or 1793, The Wolf and the Watchman, depending how you want to take it. Now, Carrie, from Very Literary Carrie, and her Black Hearts Book Club, in her infinite wisdom, has decided to read the second book of this series for the January pick for that book club. And she kindly asked me, although I don't necessarily remember agreeing to this particular one, but certainly I agreed to the second book event that I'm hosting, to host it. And I have mixed feelings. I'm not going to lie to you, because this book kind of left a big impression on me, and to the point where I was kind of afraid to read it again. But the second book, the one we'll be reading, is this one, 1794, The City Between the Bridges, and I can't even begin to imagine what it might be like, and really hope it doesn't live up to the brutality and distressing nature of the first book. Should you read it? Well, that's up to you. But I thought I would share with you at least what, for me, in a lifetime of reading, has been the most disturbing thing that I've ever read. So do take care, everybody. Stay safe, and see you all again soon. Bye-bye.